Yes, you. Welcome to the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast, a podcast for people who want to disrupt their lives for a good reason, to make it count. I'm your host, Jen Glantz, and every week I'll drop a new episode with stories from real people just like you, who woke up one morning and decided to make big changes, starting with small things. We'll cover topics like entrepreneurship, love, failure, and self-care. Hey, you're not getting any younger, so let's make this an adventure. Ready? Hey, any youngers, it's me, your host, Jen Glantz, back with another episode of the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast. How are you, my dear listeners? I just want to say once again, thank you for listening to this podcast. There's so many other podcasts. There's like 800,000 million podcasts out there. Thank you for picking this one to listen to. I'm excited to be in your ears because the theme of this week's show is actually something that's happening in real time. Look at yourself. Look at your environment. Look at your calendar. You, my friend, are halfway through 2021. And I know when I say that, it stresses you out. I know when I say that, you start to think, oh, Jen, why did you remind me? But I'm saying that for a reason. And the reason is because this is the perfect time in your year, in your life, to give yourself a progress report. When I was in school, I really didn't like report cards or progress reports. Getting those from teachers really bothered me because I always felt like who I am and what I was doing back then could never be properly summarized in a report card, a one-page report card or progress report. I remember we were judged in school with a letter, an A, a B, a C, a D, an F, and a reason as to why. But we are so much more than those progress reports or report cards that we got back in school. And that's my little tangent just to take you backward to remember those progress reports and report cards. But I want you to think about it a little bit different. You owe yourself a mid-year progress report. You know how your boss gives you those when they pull you into the office and they say, hey, let's have a mid-year review? Guess what? This is your personal mid-year review. And by the way, I never really liked those either. I remember I had a first month review at a job once, and a boss told me that I was doing my job really wonderfully and everything was great, but I should spend more time being social. And I remember that feedback being so weird. I felt like I was there to do a job and this boss was telling me to be more social, but it was a startup and that's the kind of culture they had. And it was just bizarre feedback for my first month report. Anyway, let's talk about your progress report. It is the month of June, so here's what I want you to think about, and it's simple. This right here are a couple of simple questions that you might want to write down or replay as you go through them, but grab yourself a pen, paper, and start thinking through these questions because the sooner you can think through these questions, the more you will really be able to understand what kind of progress you've made in your year so far. This is your mid-year progress report. Number 1, what are the 3 things going well in your life right now? Let's start with the positive. What are you proud of, happy about, excited? What is going well for you? And I want you to think of these 3 things in any part of your life, from work to relationships to hobbies to self-care, any of those categories. But what are 3 things just going well for you right now? Number 2, what are 3 things that you wish you did in 2021 that you have not started yet? If you think back to January when you were making your New Year's resolutions or just thinking about how your year would go, what did you envision and have you done those things yet? I know that I look back at some of my 2021 goals and I say, wow, I haven't even thought twice about some of these things. And before I know it, if I don't put those things into action, the year is going to end. One of the biggest things I wanted to start this year was to build some sort of product. And I have an idea in mind of what I want that to be. I have a couple of different ideas of a product that I want to sell. And it's something that I think about, but I've done nothing to put things in motion. I remember in February on my to-do list, there was something around brainstorming ideas for one of the products, and I didn't even do that. And here I am thinking about, wait, that is a goal of mine for this year. And if I don't get started now, if I don't really devote the time to it, this is not a product that I can launch in 2021 when it is definitely something I wanted to do. So I ask you, what are the 3 things you wish you did in 2021 that, guess what, you have not started yet? Think about some of the things that hold you back, my friend. What are some of the toxic habits, behaviors, people in your life that you need to be a little bit more aware of? Maybe think about pushing aside, maybe think about letting go of, because these things are taking up so much of your time and your energy and your space. The other day, Adam and I were planning out our goals for June together. And one of the goals we had is to spend less time on our phone. And that sounded like an interesting goal, and I was committed to doing it. But it really hit me when I looked at my screen time and saw that I am spending so much time on my phone every single week. My average screen time is close to 5 hours a day, and that is wild because there is so much more I want to do with my life or with Adam than just sit on our phones. And I think that a lot of that is because of TikTok and Instagram and my addiction to both of those things. But either way, that's something toxic because every time I'm looking at my phone, even if it's between doing work, my brain is not relaxing. My brain gets so tired. There's also some people in my life that I've noticed are bringing me down, and not in a way of a selfish kind of way, but with their comments or their doubts or just negative things they've said to me that rather than me stressing about it or me trying to recover the friendship, it's things I'm just trying to put aside right now so that I could really stay focused. What about you? What are those toxic things in your life you need to be aware of and address? By the end of this year, what do you want to say that you've started, you've done, you've made progress on in your life? You know, we make goals at the beginning of the year, and sometimes we make goals later on in the year, but rarely do we sit down in the halfway through the year and start to think to ourselves, what else do I want to do in 2021? When this year is over, how do you want it to be remembered? What do you want it to be remembered for? Think about this. What is making you the most unhappy? And what is something you can do about that this month to work through it? Something making me pretty unhappy is that I don't really leave the apartment very much. And I mean that on a couple of different levels. Number 1, there are so many opportunities throughout the day where I can just go outside, take a 20-minute walk, sit in the sun, and I don't. There's also many times where I could do something different on the weekend other than sit in my apartment, but I don't. I can plan trips to go places now and do things, but I don't. This pandemic has turned me into somebody who is go, go, go to somebody who's almost scared to go. And that's something that I really had to focus on and be aware of and work toward changing because it's making me unhappy. What about you? And finally, what are you confused about in your life and what can you do to start getting some clarity? And maybe it's confusion around your purpose, or maybe it's confusion around your feelings or your emotions or your overall life plan, but at least know what is making you feel confused right now. Now, as you can see, this progress report is way more than you rating how you're feeling with an A, B, C, D, or F. Instead, this is you diving really deep into some questions that we rarely ask ourselves. And if you ask yourself these questions, if you spend the time really focusing on each of these questions, I promise you the second half of your year will be more intentional, will look way different than the first half of the year. So if you're stressed out about how the year's been going, or it's not looking like you wanted it to go, or it's not feeling like it should go, then this is your time right now to take inventory, give yourself a progress report, and make some changes, make some progress on something that you care about. Look, we're halfway through the year. You're not getting any younger. This is your only chance at life. So what the heck are you doing with your life? And why are we wasting it on so many things we just don't care about? I challenge you to think about that. I challenge you to look at that. And I challenge you to do something about it. You deserve this halfway through 2021 progress report. thank you for listening to this episode, my friends. As always, come hang out with us in the secret You're Not Getting Any Younger Facebook group. Make sure if you like this podcast, it would mean the world to me if you can just rate and review it on iTunes. Give it some stars, write a review. All of that means so much to me. We're inching closer to our 200th episode, and the more reviews, the better. So I just want to thank you again for listening to the show. And I, your host, Jen Glantz, will be back next week with a brand new episode. All my love. Hey, you. Thank you for listening to the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast. There are hundreds of thousands of pods out there, so thank you for listening to this one. You can find the show notes for this week's episode up on our website, anyyounger.com. Subscribe, rate, and review the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast on iTunes so that other ears around the world can listen too. Oh, and join our secret You're Not Getting Any Younger Facebook group, where over 1,000 people are talking about how to disrupt their lives, for a good reason, to make it count. Until next week, all my love, Jen Glantz.